Let's go. Let's go.
مرحبا بمستمعين ومشاهدين باللغة العربية في كافة أنحاء العالم وفي العالم العربي على وجه الخصوص. مرة أخرى نلتقي برودي غاسكنز، مؤسس والمدير التنفيذي لمجتمع علوم وفنون الصوت، أو جمعية علوم وفنون الصوت كما تسمى في بعض أنحاء العالم العربي Society of Voice Arts and Sciences، والتي أطلقت واحدة من أبرز الجوائز وأبرز معايير التميز والاحتراف في عالم صناعة الأداء الصوتي، الفويس آرتس أووردز أو جوائز فنون الصوت. نتحدث هذه المرة بتفصيل أكبر عن تاريخ الفويس آرتس أووردز وعن تاريخ ومراحل تأسيس مجتمع علوم وفنون الصوت وأبرز الإنجازات التي تمت عبر العقد الماضي والنقطة التي وصلنا إليها هذا العام وما تقدمه لعالم المحترفين في هذه الصناعة في كل أصقاع العالم وبلاده من خلال الفويس آرتس أووردز وذاتس فويس أوفر كارير إكسبو، الفعاليات البارزة التي يقدمها مجتمع علوم وفنون الصوت لمحترفي فنون الأداء الصوتي على وجه الخصوص وكل من يتصل عمله بهذه الصناعة في كل أنحاء العالم وفي كل الثقافات وبكل اللغات التي يتحدث بها البشر في يوم الناس هذا. نرحب معكم برودي غاسكنز، المدير التنفيذي لمجتمع علوم وفنون الصوت الذي يرافقنا في هذا البودكاست معا عبر هذا اللقاء المصور والمسجل من مصر القاهرة ومن الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية في نيويورك تحديدا. Welcome Rudy, we are delighted and honored to have you in this interview and to demonstrate all this inspiring experience and history of the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences and the marvelous achievements of the Voice Arts Awards and what it brings to the industry and the community of world professionals in the voice acting industry. Thank you for joining
Thank you for
us.
having me. Truly, it really is my honor to be here with you.
Thanks, Rudy. First things first, let us ask you a very interesting question. Let's ask you a very interesting question for the Arabic-speaking audience around the world. It's about you in person. We need to know who is Rudy Gaskins, the Emmy Award winner producer in 2000 for the Olympic Games coverage, and the one who was behind this idea and this international body, the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences.
I am truly a producer at heart, and producers traditionally figure out how to solve problems. They're sort of like engineers, and we tinker, and we figure out how to solve problems. In my case, the problems are how to pull together events. And initially, those events for me were film projects. So I trained as a filmmaker at New York University, where I am now currently. And in that process, learned to make movies. And when I graduated, I went into the world of feature film editing as an apprentice editor. Initially, I worked with Francis Ford Coppola, the great filmmaker, on his film, The Cotton Club. I've worked with Spike Lee, Jonathan Demme, Brian De Palma, and a number of other high-profile directors, all in editing. First, it was sound editing, then it was some picture editing, music editing, and at the highest level, because as we all know in the feature film world, with those kinds of directors and the people they work with, everything is tested twice. Everything must be spot on, and that's a great way to really learn how to understand the business and do it the best way you possibly can. It also is the place where I learned to finish films. Editing is where you actually complete the movie. And in many ways, the movie doesn't know what it's going to be until you're looking at what you have to edit with. I think many of us now, we all edit to some degree, and so we know what that means.
And when and where actually was the transition that got you in connection to the world of voice acting?
Well, from filmmaking, on the editorial side, I moved into directing documentaries for public broadcasting system, also here in New York, PBS. And that was a really wonderful experience as well. But I mention it because I don't want to leap over that area because there's a lot of voice acting that goes on in that kind of production by way of narration. And most of the work I did was about childhood development. It was mostly scientific, psychological kind of work. And so we had to start working with voice actors. It was the first time for me working with voice actors. I didn't know how to direct them. I didn't know what was expected of me. I only knew the result I needed. And so I had to listen to the voice actors. I had to accept that they know more about what they're doing than I do. And they've already worked with many more directors than I had worked with voice actors. So I said, just listen to them and then guide where you can guide. It was a similar process to learning to direct actors in film school. My role as a director is to help the actor achieve both my result and the method that they require to achieve their results. And so
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
listened, and that made a big difference for me. And it also built a respect for voice actors. Later, I worked with a young woman named Joan Baker as a voice actor on a job for ABC News, and she became my wife later. And it was through working so closely with someone who did voice acting every day that I really learned the plight of the voice actor. I really got a sense of what she was up against, what the challenges were. And one of the things she did was teach classes. And I sat in on one of her classes and recognized that there was an opportunity to add not just her voice as an actor who lives it and breathes technique, but to have the students understand from a directorial standpoint what is being
Hmm. Hmm.
sought after. And that was my first real connection with building things in voice acting, creating a class with her, with the point of view of both the director and the talent.
So we can use a metaphor and say you have got married to voice acting.
That's a good one. I did. And
What
I'm
was
still there. I'm still married.
of course. Um, 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 Actually, I have a question about Joan as well, but let me ask you first, what was different with voice acting? You were always helping the actor getting uh, to the end result you are expecting. What was different with voice actors in specific?
He means it's sort of talent versus director.
No, I'm saying camera actor versus voice actor. What was the main difference?
Yeah. The essential difference uh, is that the voice actor comes into it for the most part. Most of the voice actors I worked with came into voice acting uh, as their first entree into acting. They had no experience with traditional acting. And because I was just learning to work with voice actors, I didn't challenge that level of experience. I just accepted it. But as I started working with voice actors who were also actors, I realized we could speak a common language. Because the language I learned as a director in film school, and of course I'd studied acting as well at NYU. If you're in the NYU film program, you have to study acting. So you develop a language that you
Of
can count
course.
on. And when you're working with
Mm.
traditional actors, you have that to work with. when you're working with voice actors, you're establishing a new language in many cases. So there's a lot of listening and recognizing what works for them. So I might give direction, for example, a specific direction, like if you can just, some things are very simple, like if you can soften this, or if you can speak faster, if you need to change the rhythm. But other things are more complex because the words and the feelings for them are not so easy to just direct. You have to find them. And in some cases, that's where you discover whether the actor is having a problem understanding what you mean, or whether you're having a problem conveying what you mean. But there's a dance that you do with the talent to find out what's going on so that you can uncover the language that will move them in the right direction and let them achieve, of course, your end goal. As a director, you have a vision and you're trying to hit that end goal. You're trying to hit the bullseye. Also, as a director,
So it's some kind of collateral creative process or interaction.
it is, yes. And it's a big part of it is learning each other's language, because we all have different ways of expressing ourselves and it's not always clear. So there's a lot of listening to understand. I always tell actors, if you don't fully grasp what the director is asking of you, go with what you do understand, because he's there to direct. So when you do something, when you take a risk, you're going to receive some sort of feedback. And in that way, you will come to an understanding. So
Oh,
I love that aspect of the process.
definitely. And what got you or led you to the point when you started thinking about establishing some reference body uh, for the for this particular kind of performing art industry, the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences?
Well, I'm going to shorten the story, but Joan and I published a book called The Secrets of Voice Over Success. Joan authored it, and we brought in 22 different top voice actors from around the country, from around the US. And it was the first time the voice acting community came together in a common effort like that, because there were book signings where all of those voice actors were invited to sign books and meet with the audience and do question and answer. So it was really kind of the first community event that I recognized in voice acting. And we started building book signings so that we could answer people's questions. And there was never enough time to complete those, to completely address all the kinds of questions that would come up. And so what we did was we rented out a hotel room so that we could have as much time as we needed, so that we could have 4 or 5 hours. Because those who read that book didn't hear it from one point of view. They got to hear 22 different points of view right away. And to learn that voice acting doesn't happen one way. There's no one way that any individual breaks into it. There are many ways. So you would read that book and you could find yourself within it, or maybe as a combination of some of the characters. The book signings were never long enough. The line of people who wanted books and who wanted to ask questions, we could never accommodate it. So we started renting out a hotel room and holding book signings of our own. Rather than doing it with the bookstore, we created our own book signings so that we could stay long enough to answer questions. And then we would have 4 or 5 hours to spend with people and provide a little food. Those eventually grew into,
And that was the starting point of That's Voiceover Career Expo.
that's it.
It was it was the nucleus that burst into a conference.
That's right. Absolutely. And at that time, we only called it That's Voiceover, which was a title that Joan Baker came up with. She was thinking about the old adage, that's entertainment. And she thought, that's voiceover. So we took that and ran with it. And eventually we changed the name to That's Voiceover Career Expo, because we felt the focus was on people getting work. The conference
and building career, yes.
and we continue with that theme. Everything we do with the conference is based on, will it help people get work? Will it teach people the skills that they need to go to the next level?
Very interesting story and very inspiring. Uh, a blast off point. And how did this lead to uh, thinking of some kind of reward or contest that will provide or get or come out with the Voice Arts Awards or something similar to the significant awards we hear about in different performing arts industries?
Yeah, it was a very organic evolution because when we created the conference, we sought out the top talent agents, casting directors, and voice actors to be the speakers. And looking for those people and checking their resumes and discussing with them their ideas for conversations with new voice actors as well as intermediate voice actors, we just realized how brilliant they were and how many years this brilliance has been hidden in a vocal booth with no recognition. And people have devote their entire lives to voice acting, and so many people in the public and in the market, in the business, don't really understand their plight, don't really respect what it takes. I've done classes with producers so that they could learn to direct voice actors, producers
Mhm.
from television networks. And when they sit down and have to deal with doing copy, every one of them would say, I'll never complain about how much we pay the voice actors again. But they had to be put through that process before they understood it wasn't so simple. So it was in recognizing their talent that we realized there must be a way to celebrate it, and not in a small way, in a very special way. What can we do that people understand this is a vital aspect of the industry, of media globally, and that takes great talent and skill, and that they're wonderful people who do it, and they deserve recognition for what they do. And that's when we began thinking about how to create an award, what would the symbol be, what would be the appropriate name for it, and how do we expose it to the world.
What was your mission when you thought about that? What was that for?
The mission when we began the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, and it still is, was really to elevate the industry, to expose it to the world, and in many ways to itself. Because as I described about the book, people were working in their individual silos. They didn't necessarily have a way to connect and learn from each other in a way that was fun and in a way that was focused. So that was a big part of starting the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, which encompasses that's voiceover, so that we could do all that we could to elevate the understanding of voice acting and have people recognize the level of skill and talent involved, and to have voice actors feel emboldened to charge the rates that they deserve for the work that they do, so that they had to also respect themselves. And we wanted them to have an environment where that would be uh, really championed. And that's what we tried to do.
In three distinct stages, how did that evolve? How did it manifest over the past decade?
Over the past decade, well, I would say there was initially because with the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, we introduced the Voice Arts Awards, and that was new to voice actors. Most voice actors had never had the opportunity to vie for an award, especially in a comprehensive way where there are many categories, and you would very likely have an opportunity somewhere within those categories. So there were a lot of challenges just in terms of explaining how an award show works, and people made up their own ideas about it, and that created misunderstandings. And so the first stage was really about explaining what we're doing, how it works, why you should care, uh, why it should be us doing it. I've had people ask, why should you be the one to do this? And the answer was always, because I thought to do it. And that's how everything happens. Someone thinks to do it and they bring it into existence. But for a lot of people, that was a big question. And people didn't recognize you can declare something and make it happen. You just bring it into existence, uh, and hopefully with integrity. And so that was the first stage, just explaining it. The second stage was having people understand how to get value from winning an award. That it's one thing to have a beautiful award on the shelf. It's another thing. And of course, there is uh, tremendous love and affection for the experience of winning, especially after many years in the shadows of your booth, to finally be able to step out on the stage and be recognized by your peers and others. So there is, you can't ignore the feeling of becoming a nominee when you have 50 or 100 other people in the category, especially. And, um, and so I don't want to leave that out. It's a big deal to be on the field and to raise your hands in victory. So the other part, though, is what do you do after you win an award or after you achieve a nomination? That's where marketing begins. And so you now have a new tool to allow you. Oh, so the second stage we were talking about, uh,
Yes.
I'll continue with that, is what do you do with the award now that you've won it? What do you do with your nomination now that you've won it? And that's where marketing begins, because you want people to know that you had this achievement, and you want to use it to extend your visibility in the marketplace. And there are many ways to do that, but it all begins with recognizing the question: how do I use this to create visibility for my brand as a voice actor? And then the third stage is giving back. So that's voiceover. I mean, the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences is a charity organization. We built it as a charity as opposed to a for-profit. We are a nonprofit organization. And with a nonprofit organization, there are no owners. There are only stewards. And we depend on the public to help fund what we do. And so that's one way of giving back. But the other way of giving back is through following the mission and the creed of the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences. Reach out to people, give yourself to those who are trying to break into the industry. I'm not saying that the coaches shouldn't be paid or anything, but we all have opportunities where we can mentor, where we can offer a scholarship class. So a number of people have offered classes for That's Voiceover for free, so that they can help others. And of course, donating to the cause. You can donate to SOVAS.org to help keep us going, for example. I think those are the three stages that I would point to.
Speaking of the stages of involvement or of stages of evolution or the manifestation of the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, I think I have to refer as well to the globalization of the idea and of this vision through a lot of world cultures and a lot of regions around the world. Now, the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences has outreached to several regions outside the United States of America, and it came into several cultures through the industry professionals of these countries and regions. So there is some kind of presence and participation in languages like Mandarin in the far east of the world, in Japanese, on the shore of the Pacific Ocean, in Australia, and of course in a lot of or several regions in Europe, and the Middle East, as we are talking now, and North Africa, the Arab world. So I think the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, we can say that it has outcompeted uh, some other more or older bodies like the Academy, like Emmys, which were established back in early times in 20th century. However, they did not achieve that level or that far outreach in globalization and inclusion in terms of culture, diversity, and linguistic wide spectrum that the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences included.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I didn't describe the entire mission, but part of it was and is for the Society of Voice Arts and Science is the pursuit of diversity, equality, and inclusion. So that is something that's always present in everything that we do. And it took a while to build that out globally, and that's an ongoing process. It took some years, probably 5 or 6 years of intense focus to get where we are right now on that level. But it's the most beautiful aspect of what we do. I think when you talk about the Oscars or the Emmys in the time when they started, uh, countries are just more isolated. And today, we do live in a world where there's global access via the internet, and people are
Mhm.
talking to each other one way or the other. And it only made sense to extend the work we were doing to all voice actors. And it really it makes for a much better meal in the end when everybody's is sitting at the table. And I've been in tears more than once backstage at the Voice Arts Awards, listening to people in their own languages from around the world describe their joy. You don't have to understand the language necessarily to understand the feeling and that they're expressing. And even the clothing, the garb that people bring to express their country, their nationality, makes for an Olympic-like event, and very exciting to see.
Exactly, yes. This is a very nice expression or very nice metaphor, if we can say. And how did it all started? How did it all start? How did it? When was the starting point when Society of Voice Arts and Sciences started or began moving forward out of the region and out of the theater of the United States?
Well, our very first show, award show, the inaugural show was 2014. That was the year that James Earl Jones came to receive our Voice Arts Icon Award. And leading up to that program, I was I was contacted by a gentleman named Fabian Toro from South America. And he said,
Mhm.
why not have some categories for Spanish speaking? And I said, well, I have that. I'm planning to do that in 2015. So you can expect that to happen. And he said, why can't you do it now? And I thought about that and I said, there really is no reason I can't do it now. It was going to take something, but I said, okay, we'll create one award so that we can just get it started. It was late in the season, so we couldn't do a series of categories at that time, but we managed to create one general award for the Spanish speaking community. And a lot of people submitted for that award. And Fabian Toro actually won that award. He was the first winner. And so that's how it started. We immediately added a slew of Spanish categories for 2015. And and the important thing about launching an award series of award categories in other languages, you have to know something about the culture. You need somebody who understands how to localize the messaging and who understands the categories of interest in those regions. So that was what was really required to grow in an international way on an international basis was creating ambassadors for the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences who could carry the message faithfully, honestly, and authentically to their communities. And I'm happy to say and pleased that you are one of those ambassadors. Anyone who goes to our website, you can look up the international ambassadors and see them all and read about their past, read their bios, and just know that this level of global support and reach would not happen without these people.
Mhm. Starting with Spanish language was making a very good sense because Spanish language is the second spoken language in the United States. And that leads us to think about the diversity actually the American community already has, because the United States, in terms of culture, is a commonwealth of cultures. So moving to diversity and including several tongues and several cultures and different performers from around the world is making perfect sense actually, especially in terms of voice acting. So it seems intuitive when we talk about it, um, and it leads that to questions about why doesn't other bodies or other awards do the same thing. Actually, uh, um, it was an honor and an unprecedented move for the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences to take that initiative before a lot others. Um, and let's get back to what uh, concerns the Arabic speaking industry professionals and voice actors more. How do they get involved in the events, in the activities, in the Voice Arts Awards?
For the Voice Arts Awards, the first level of involvement is to submit your work. That does a couple of things. One, it puts you on our radar, and and especially if you become a nominee, you have the opportunity for exposure. Other people see you as a nominee, and they want to find out who you are, and so it will create some buzz around you. And at the end of the year, last year was the first year we did it. We put up all of the work. Eventually, you'll see everything from 2024, the actual pieces that were submitted. There will be an archive where you can go and look at that work, so that if you're a nominee, your work can be seen as well. Keep in mind that when we look at the winners at the end, they come from a group where the difference between the votes were 0.1 or 0.2. So the work that wins is, or the work that comes in second or third is very high quality work in many instances. And so there's reason to say when you're a nominee and everyone says, I'm proud to be a nominee, that's enough for me, I don't have to be a winner. Well, you can be proud of that because you were very close in all likelihood to, maybe by 1 point or 0.1 points to becoming a winner. So so it's very valuable to
and having these works available online through SOVA's portal means that they can have direct links to these works, so they can refer to them over social media or in their resumes or LinkedIn profiles and so on, right?
Yes, and you'll be sending someone to a third-party website. That makes a difference. It's one thing when you tell someone how great you are. It's another thing when they get it from someone else. So when you send them to the SOVAS website, they see your work there. They realize someone else is recognizing you. And
Mhm.
that's the best kind of PR you can get. And that's really what PR is. It's more like third-party recognition.
Okay, I have to ask a question about some concern that was raised by a lot of Arabic-speaking participants or talents who did not yet participate about the fees. Maybe we are not in the Arab environment or ecosystem of this industry. We're not used to this kind of paid participation in such contests. So there are a lot of professionals who are asking why or have some concerns about why should they pay to submit their works in the Voice Arts Awards. We need to describe the ecosystem of the process of submission and how does that work and why does it necessary to pay for a submission, a basic fee for the submission, and how does this mechanism work in order for people to be aware of the whole ecosystem mechanism.
Well, to make it simple, the question to ask is, why should I have to pay for a loaf of bread? Why doesn't the store just give me the bread for free? When you ask that question, you can already start to imagine the ecosystem behind that. Someone has to make the bread, someone has to travel the bread to the store, someone has to wrap it, someone has to price it, and someone has to mind the store and give it to you, and someone has to refund your money if it's not correct. So yes, there is an ecosystem behind what we do. And it's much like a traditional business where there are people behind the scenes who are managing the administration, who are building the trophies, and it costs money. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from the community of people who get the payoff. So there's not just paying, there's also a payoff. When you enter a university, in the United States anyway, you pay to submit an application for admission. You don't automatically get admitted, but you pay for the school to review your submission. And then they will let you know if you were accepted or not. That's another way to understand the ecosystem. So when you pay to submit your work, know that there is a machinery behind that. There's a portal that's been built out, very complex portal that's been built out to manage that. And then there's a considerable amount of work that we do on the back end, including reaching out and finding, selecting jurors and managing the jury process. I think last year we had nearly 300 jurors. All those people have to be managed through a process. And then an accounting firm. It goes through all the submissions, all the balloting to make sure that they don't see any aberrations. They don't see anything that doesn't look correct. And if they do, they dig into it and we discover what might be wrong. And then there's putting on a gala, which is a very expensive endeavor. Last year we were at the Beverly Hilton. That's the same venue that the Golden Globes uses. So you can imagine that there are very serious costs involved in that, and 50 different people that have to be hired to run that event. So go back to the bread scenario. Why shouldn't I be able to get my bread for free? Ask that question when you ask, why should I pay for the opportunity to have an enormous payoff through recognition of not becoming a nominee or becoming a winner, and having something that I can now add to my resume and use to evolve my own career as I go forward. But here's another thing. You've got to put yourself on the playing field. It's something that happens inside a person when they think about, should I submit or should I not? And that's very personal and very psychological in some ways. And when you say no to yourself, what is that about? So you might want to make up reasons to get around your own fear. Oh, I shouldn't have to pay. But what you're really saying is, I'm afraid I won't win. So that's something that a lot of people have to get past. And I don't make that up. People have shared this with me. They've also shared with me, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think my skill is there yet. Well, if you're in voice
Mhm.
acting, you're essentially ready because there's no little league in voice acting. There's only the majors. Either you're in or you're on the outside. Uh, but there's nobody who's out there looking for novices. They're looking for people who have the skill to deliver. So once you have reached that level where you're working professionally, uh, not only professionally, because we do have spoken word categories, poetry, and a lot of those people do it for the love, do it strictly for the art. So we don't task them with having to be professional. That work is judged on its own merit.
Okay. And I believe as well that there are some similar mechanisms with other contests, like the Academy Award, like the enemy, the enemy, like the Academy Award or the Emmys. I think they too charge for submissions. I think, and
The Academy Awards is a different animal. Uh, the big studios really do all the promotion that gets those nominees to happen, those nominations to happen. So you don't just pay a fee and put in your film. Uh, you have to really be able to get behind it
uh-huh.
promotionally. And so
Hmm.
you'll see the actors on different television shows pushing the films, and you'll see many ads asking you to consider the film. Uh, so many, many millions are spent. Hundreds of millions of dollars are spent in marketing
Hmm.
just around the nominee process for the Academy Award. So it's in a whole different league.
Hmm.
The amount of money spent there, what you spend for an entry into the Voice Arts Awards or for the trophy itself is peanuts compared to what's going on over there.
Of course.
So there are definitely lessons that we learn from watching what they do. As you mentioned, we've been able to do something on a global level that they haven't considered and probably cannot do, with the exception of the international offering that they have for, I think, two categories: short films and long form features. Um, but if you ever want to do some research about how the Academy Awards works, it will give you a headache trying to
Mm.
understand the way that ecosystem operates.
Um, Another question on behalf of Arabic speaking talents. For those who have some issues or some problems with online payment or electronic transactions in their countries, did you have or planned some kind of workaround in order to make that happen? I mean, some in some countries PayPal is not available. In some countries, credit cards for some reason are getting blocked when they try to make the payment either for the submission or for the trophy. So, um, did you have any solution or any kind of workaround in order to get over this obstacle?
Right now, the only workaround is working one-on-one with an individual. So if they contact me and they let me know that they're having an issue, uh, there are two things I can do. One is contact the company, the paywall that the attempt is being made to pay, and see if they can release the mechanisms that are blocking them, or to find a new way for them to send their payment. But I would love to investigate more what's going on to block payments and to see if there's a way that we can remove that impediment, sort of once and for all. I know that many people are concerned about scams and hacking and so on, and they put
Mhm.
features in place where they feel the most issues are coming from. So in the case, the portal that we use, and it's a third-party system. The portal that we use is not owned by Society of Voice Arts and Science. It's a company that we contract with, and they have noticed where problems have come from around the world, and they tend to block those areas and ask them to do an extra step in order to get through. And they just do a blanket blocking. They're not in some way analyzing the work as it's coming in and making a choice. They just set it up to, if it comes from this region, say no. And I don't know how they can do that better, but I'm interested in doing it better. And maybe this is a conversation you and I can have offline to see if there's some way to do more. So that folks, now you're seeing live what happens with our ambassadors and myself to try to address issues, important issues that that people are concerned about.
Okay. Seems like we're coming to the last chapter in this conversation or this podcast. That was a very interesting interview, actually. And now I think we have to talk about the jury process. Um, we Arabs need to know, how does the judging process work, and what are your measures in selecting and appointing new judges who are evaluating and scoring submissions and works, and actually who are working as the engine who is making all that happen and providing this global recognition to the nominees and the winners of the contest?
Yeah. So, well, we ask all jurors or people who want to become jurors, we ask them to fill out a form. And that form includes their first language, naming whatever language they speak as their main language, and any languages they speak fluently, second or third languages, because we may give them work in those languages as well. The application also includes their professional background and asks them to submit 2 professional references. There's some confusion there. I mean, in America, a professional reference means a professional person with whom you have done professional work.
Mm-hmm.
So someone from a job that you worked at and who was your
So,
supervisor.
so someone who
And so
could
they really,
someone who could recommend you when you get back or refer to him.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we look at who the references are. And if the references have titles that indicate that they are have a high level of professionality regarding this business, and that helps us to think about, if that person is referring you, then that's a good thing. Then we look at your resume and your bio. And so, oftentimes people don't submit both. We don't necessarily have to have both, but it's nice if you send both of them, because we do read them and we think about whether this person is a good fit or not. Especially when it comes to the international community, and when I say international, I mean outside of the United States, we have less insight about how things work and who the judges are and the degree to which people use the same tactic we use in terms of references. So there's a little bit of guesswork on our part when it comes to that. But I think for the most part, we do a fair job at distinguishing who's who. And we know that some people will absolutely slip through the cracks. But the thing that a lot of folks don't understand about the judging process is that it's a very personal one. Once people are watching the videos, they don't know who the other judges are who are looking at the piece they're looking at. The judges don't know who has which work in hand. So unless you were speaking personally with the judge, they couldn't tell you. You wouldn't know who was the judge on my work. Only we know who's been assigned to the projects. And it's very personal what they choose. Sometimes they may know the actor that they're judging. And we ask, if you know the actor that you're judging to the degree that you don't feel you can be fair, you should recuse yourself. But we're not standing over the juror's shoulder to make sure they do that. But a lot of people do recuse themselves, and they tell us, I worked on that project, I was the producer on that project, or I was involved on some level, and so they recuse themselves. But what we do behind the scenes is we make sure that at least 7 distinct jurors look at each work. 7 votes for each work that is submitted.
And is there any chance that any of these 7 know the others or recognize the others who are voting the same work?
Well, I shouldn't
No
say
chance.
there's no chance. There's no aspect in the system that would allow them to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you happen to know someone who is a judge, because the judges all announce that they are judges, so you can see who the judges are,
Yes.
and you might see someone and say, "Hey, I'm a judge also. What work did you score?" And then they can tell you. But at that point, they've already scored,
Uh-huh.
so you can't have any influence. Uh, it would take a big effort. If I know that you're a judge, and we both know that we're judging, for me to call you and say, "Hey, tell me who you're judging. Tell me if this person is on your list." So it would take a big conspiracy for someone to
Uh-huh.
find a way to break the code.
There are a lot of aspects controlling the process and a lot of variables to get sorted out. I think.
That points out
Mhm.
discrepancies. So if someone, for example, had a habit of lowering all the scores, but always having a high score for someone, then you would know something is odd there. And that hasn't happened too often, but when it does, the accountants
Mhm.
alert us to that. And then we contact that juror and we talk to them about their scores and determine whether we're going to disqualify their scores.
This is a very important point. Okay, thank you so much, Rudy Gaskins, CEO and founder of the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, and Emmy Award winner as a producer in the Olympic Games in 2000. It was a brilliant way to start your new millennium with this award, and I was really interested and honored and delighted to conduct this insightful and inspiring conversation and podcast with you between Cairo and New York over 7 hours of time difference. It was also inspiring and insightful for all Arabic speaking audiences around the world on the Voice Arts Awards and the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences. Now I'm going to finalize and close this podcast in Arabic. مشاهدينا ومستمعينا الأعزاء، كان معنا رودي غاسكنز المدير التنفيذي ومؤسس مجتمع علوم وفنون الصوت والحائز على جائزة الإيميز عن فئة الإنتاج التلفزيوني في عام 2000 عن تغطية الألعاب الأولمبية. تحدثنا فيها واستعرضنا تاريخ إنشاء مجتمع علوم وفنون الصوت والرؤية الكامنة وراءه ورحلته عبر عقد من الزمان مضى، وما نتوقع أن نراه ونستقبله في هذا العام في فعاليات هذا المجتمع وفي مسابقة الفويس آرتس أوردز أو جوائز فنون الأداء الصوتي. كنت معكم أنا أحمد القطب من القاهرة، وكان معنا رودي غاسكنز من نيويورك. شكرا لكم، ونلتقيكم في يناير المقبل بإذن الله تعالى في بيفرلي هيلتون إلى جوار هوليوود على ساحل المحيط الهادي الأمريكي. إلى اللقاء.
Let's go.